लंदन पहुंचते ही शिरोल केस के मुकदमे की तैयारी में तिलक जी जुट गए।
Mr. Tilak, listen to me carefully. You have been sentenced twice for sedition, and the British government highly respects Sir Valentine Chirrell. A decision in your favor may have repercussions in India. The odds are highly against us.
I understand this, Sir Simon. I have decided to fight this case here due to the obvious bias of judiciary in India.
Let me also warn you about the cross-examination by my colleague, Mr. Carson. He is well known for that, to the point of being ruthless.
I've heard of it.
Sir John, by the way, is it possible that in the examination in chief, you can pose some questions to Mr. Tilak about his relationship with the group that is we call Sudharak, soft liners?
I fail to see the relevance of such questions for our purpose.
It could be helpful to us for the cause in India, the present struggle.
Look, Mr. Karandikar, let me make it quite clear that I'm not representing your political cause in India. I'm appearing for Mr. Tilak strictly in this matter concerning libel. Nothing I speak of in his favor may be construed as showing sympathy for your political cause in India. It's a gentleman's agreement.
I appreciate your frankness, Sir John. I'm sure you'll do your best in the council.
My lord, to begin with, I should like to give you and the jury some information about Mr. Tilak. Tilak, born in a Hindu Brahmin family, has been in social service for the past 40 years. He has been admired all over India, especially for his work during the plague periods in 1896 and 1903. Now, regarding this case, in his writings, the accused has stated that Tilak, with the help of the Cow Protection Society issue, provoked the people to start Hindu-Muslim riots. Mr. Tilak has denied this, and the police commissioner's report has proven that the statements of the accused are baseless, and I will come to this later. There are in total 6 libels, and I'm at a loss to understand how some of these libels are sought to be justified at all. I was able to discover nothing that would support justification for these charges leveled against the plaintiff, that is, Mr. Tilak.
सुना है कार्सन आज तिलक जी को क्रॉस एग्जामिन करने वाले हैं और अच्छे लोग भी उनके सामने कटघरे में खड़े रहने से डरते हैं।
इस कला से तिलक जी अपरिचित नहीं हैं। I am quite confident about his performance.
Mr. Tilak, about the trial in 1897, was there a charge against you of exciting or attempting to excite feelings of disaffection toward the government established by law in British India?
Yes.
Were you tried before a jury?
Yes.
Were they all Europeans?
No. 6 Europeans and 3 Indians.
What was the verdict?
6 against me, 3 in my favor. According to the Indian law, the judge had to, yes, the judge had to accept the verdict of the majority and sentence the accused.
I think the laughter in the back of the court by the supporters of this gentleman is quite undignified.
The result of any attempt of that kind will be met by me with a clearing of all those from that part of the court.
In the United Kingdom, your lordship has discretion to overrule the majority jury if...
I know that you are referring to the obvious discrepancy in the law over here and the law in British India.
ये एक अजीबोगरीब संजोग था कि संसार की 2 विलक्षण प्रतिभाएं आज एक दूसरे के आमने सामने थी। एक थे सर एडवर्ड कार्सन, जिन्होंने आयरिश रिपब्लिक को आजादी दिलवाने में एक प्रमुख भूमिका अपनाई थी, और दूसरे थे बाल गंगाधर तिलक, जो हिंदुस्तान की गुलामी तोड़ने के लिए जी जान से जुटे हुए थे। दोनों ही आक्रामक तो थे, साथ साथ अपने अपने ध्येय के प्रति पूरी तरह समर्पित। ये भिड़ंत थी दो ताकतवर शेरों की।
Who owned the newspaper called?
Shivram Pant, Paranspe.
Did you teach him?
Yes. I taught the class in which he was.
Did you teach him or not? Just give me a plain answer.
Yes. I taught the class in which he was studying. But I did not specifically teach him.
Is it true that you helped him prepare his defense for the case of sedition against him?
I was partly helping him.
While doing so, did you care if your article excited the readers? This is in regards with the bombs. I'm referring to Muzaffarpur.
Every man is entitled to prepare his defense, and every friend of his is entitled to help him.
So, you were with your friend in your room, helping him to prepare his defense for the bomb case when you were arrested.
Yes. He came to see me when the police arrived.
Is that the kind of man you would associate with? Who preached assassination of people by bombing to be your friend?
I did not know that he was not convicted then.
His conviction made no difference to you?
No, it did not affect my friendship. I may disapprove of his opinions, but that should not affect my friendship with him.
You learned, I suppose, in May 1908, of the murder of 2 European ladies at Muzaffarpur by a bomb.
Yes.
Was the partition of Bengal the cause of all of this?
Yes, it is, as in the case of Ireland and Ulster.
Never mind Ulster. Ulster will take care of itself. It does not gain you anything to introduce personal matters into this case.
Nothing personal. You'll find Ireland often quoted in my articles, which are part of the record.
Have you been encouraging the Bengali people to break the law?
Not at all.
Turn to page 936. Well done, Bengali brothers. Well done. What had they done so well?
They had resorted to Swadeshi and boycott of foreign goods.
All right, let's go to the next line. You write, well done for your courage and patience. In sedition?
Not in sedition. The construction by the prosecution is not justified.
I suppose that every man over here can judge for himself.
Yes, but he must judge reasonably.
Look at this statement. This establishes one fact, namely, that when the time comes, by the grace of God, even the weak people are inclined to set themselves against the tyrannical rulers. Was that in reference to the British government?
No, not to the officials.
That is the British government. It consists of the officials.
No, I make a distinction between a government and its officials.
But a government must consist of officials. Otherwise, it's an abstract entity.
A house consists of rooms, but a room cannot be called a house.
Were you not the leader of the Chitpavan Brahmins?
I am the leader of the whole people, not just the Chitpavan Brahmins.
No one knew better than you the danger of the bomb.
Everybody knew it.
I am pointing specifically to you. You're a very intelligent man.
There are hundreds of men like me in India.
I do not think anyone else quite as great.
Well, I do not know about that. But in my opinion, there are hundreds and thousands of intelligent Indians in India.
Page 450. The poor, on account of famine, and with them the rich, on account of the epidemic, feel sad for the annoyance of government. Things have come to such a pass that call of death cannot be avoided. Was that an incitement against government?
No, it was a way of getting heard.
Now, page 464. Mr. Ran was an unfortunate choice as the chairman of Pune Plague Committee. He cared little for the hardship and miseries that were inflicted upon the people. Now, Mr. Tilak, was that calculated to raise resentment against Mr. Rand?
It was not my business to raise resentment.
He has extreme distrust in natives, which makes him a tyrant at a time when people are suffering from plague and famine. Mr. Tilak, could anything be more calculated to lead to the murder of Mr. Rand?
The assassination was due to the oppressive acts and not to their being expressed. It was his own oppressive acts which killed Rand.
Rand sends scores of people to segregation camp every day, even if they are not suffering from plague. Do you see, Mr. Tilak, what a horrible accusation you have made?
Horrible, if untrue. But to my knowledge, it was a valid criticism.
Further down it is written, soldiers were unfit to hold their powers. People were stripped naked, abused, and insulted. Was that calculated to lead to the assassination of those soldiers?
This writing is not calculated to do so.
Were you surprised that somebody murdered Rand?
No, that was bound to happen. The assassination took place due to his operation, not due to my writing about the operation in Kesari.
Then you write, I quote, with the appointment of Rand, a suspicion arises whether he has been selected only to give trouble to Pune. I don't think anybody can make a more wicked suggestion.
No, it is not a wicked suggestion. I believe if the grievances are not redressed, this kind of impression is bound to be created.
हर दिन कार्सन तिलक जी को अपने नए नए जाल में फांसते गए ताकि किसी छोटे से गुट या प्रदेश के एक मामूली आंदोलनकारी के रूप में तिलक जी दिखाई दे। पर तिलक जी कार्सन के हर चक्रव्यूह को तोड़ते चले गए और उन्होंने अपनी पहचान समस्त दुनिया के सामने भारत के एक ऐसे शक्तिशाली नेता के रूप में प्रस्तुत की जो एक स्वतंत्रता का बलि प्रदत्त आसामी था।
Look at these statements. The rulers cannot see anything beyond their own interest. They do not see 30 crore Indians as their subjects or their own people. In their view, we are just moving and talking machines to produce wealth and should be made ready in their service. They are committing a great sin, and God is sure to punish them for this sin. Very few things can be expected from such an unsympathetic government. The execution of law by soldiers should be mild and inoffensive, but their oppression was not so much of a shame than the tame, sheepish behavior of people who suffered it. Now, Mr. Tilak, don't you think these statements are intended to exasperate and incite people, to encourage malice and bad feeling toward the British government?
None of it. What I wrote was a valid criticism.
Would you then tell me how you would excite people to exasperation?
We must complain repeatedly of being deprived of the rights which are ours.
I am asking you to tell me what kind of language you would use.
If I wanted them to rebel, I would have said so openly. Go ahead.
But that is not half as strong as what these statements are. I want the best specimen of language which can incite people to exasperation. A perfect example of the words to use for sedition.
Quotation from your oration during your Irish freedom struggle against the British government.
राजनीतिक रणनीति के माहिर तिलक जी ने इस मौके का बखूबी इस्तेमाल किया ताकि इस ब्रिटिश मंच से ही भारत की स्वाधीनता का स्वर सारे विश्व में गूंज उठे।
Page number 503. Europe cannot boast of even a single upright man of Shivaji's stature. History will find fault with Shivaji but from the point of view of ethics, his act does not merit censure. What does this mean?
According to European science of ethics, if you apply the principle of greatest good for greatest number as moral standard, then you cannot condemn the murder of Afzal Khan.
Does it mean that if you do good for a great number of people, you can commit murder?
No, that will be the consequence from the utilitarian point of view.
Like the murder of Mr. Ran?
That was nothing to do with it.
You said from the utilitarian point of view.
It has no value from the utilitarian point of view.
But according to the doctrine,
There are limitations to the doctrine. It is the doctrine of the greatest good for the greatest number. And if some fools misunderstand it, I cannot help it.
Mr. Tilak, when Professor Gensivali said in his speech that if Caesar and Napoleon are not blamed for committing murder for their causes, why should Shivaji Maharaj be blamed for a murder? Was that a defense of murder, Mr. Tilak? What do you think?
In the first place, I do not consider that Shivaji committed the murder of Afzal Khan.
Is it your opinion that great men are above the common principles of morality?
Yes, a superman is not bound by it.
Any great man?
Not any great man.
So, do you apply this to the Emperor of Germany?
No, I do not.
Why not?
Because his mission was to conquer the whole world, which, in my opinion, is a sin. No man or government should have the ambition to rule over the whole world. Self-rule must be the birthright.
This case should have been tried in India. But Mr. Tilak must have been wary of his reputation that precedes him. Mr. Tilak ought to have a verdict. But I request the jury to consider the consequences of their verdict on the government of India and the white officials in India. Mr. Tilak has never made any bones about expressing his dislike for our people in India, managing his country against all odds, far from the comfort of their homeland. The jury ought to consider all of Mr. Tilak's actions since 1893.
अब शायद एडवर्ड कार्सन को ऐसा लगता होगा कि उन्होंने आखिरी समय पर तिलक जी का मुकदमा लड़ने से इनकार नहीं किया होता तो अच्छा होता।
हाँ, क्या हम अपने पक्ष में निर्णय की उम्मीद कर सकते हैं?
Honourable members of the jury, I now stand for the summing up of the case. Let me emphasise that when Mr. Tilak was tried for sedition in Pune in 1897, not a word was said about the murder of Rand. We should also remember that Her Majesty's government in India thought it fit to accept his election to the Legislative Council on 2 occasions. His work during the plague and famine should be weighed vis-à-vis all the accusations. The most important fact is the 3rd sedition trial against him. In that judgment, it was stated that criticizing a group of officials is not the same as criticism of the government. I am not seeking to justify everything that Mr. Tilak has done, but even the devil should have his due. Remember that he is not of your blood, not of your caste, he is not of your religion. And keeping all this in mind, be fair and valiant.
ब्रिटिश सरकार ये बात अच्छी तरह जानती है कि अगर तिलक जी ये मुकदमा जीत गए तो ये एक तरह से उनके संघर्ष का कानूनी समर्थन होगा। इस कारण ज्यूरी क्या निर्णय लेती है ये बहुत कुछ इस बात पर निर्भर करता है कि जस्टिस डाउलिंग उन्हें किस दिशा में सोचने के लिए बोलते हैं। हाँ, अगर जस्टिस डाउलिंग 1915 में तिलक जी के ऊपर जो राजद्रोह का 3रा मुकदमा हुआ था उसके निर्णय को ध्यान में रखें तो हमारा पक्ष मजबूत हो सकता है।
Gentlemen, This is a question of character, and you have to decide if the plaintiff's character has been damaged at all. Therefore, it is right that you should remember who he is, privately and publicly, and what character he bears. You should consider how much the defendant could have injured him. A man who has been twice charged and sentenced for sedition, who has been banned from speaking in his own country as he was dissuading people from joining the army and fighting for his country. Can his character be further damaged by them, or would it be from his own actions? Gentlemen, that is the man who comes to you for damages, a man of whom his own countrymen, a judge, Mr. Davar, was highly critical, and this is published and read all over India. Now, gentlemen, I leave this case to you. Gentlemen of the jury, are you all agreed?
Yes, we are.
Find for the plaintiff or for the defendant?
For the defendant.
जूरी के निर्णय से तिलक जी निराश हो गए। कहते थे इस तरह का न्याय तो ब्रिटिश हिंदुस्तान में भी मिल सकता था।
ऐसी हर निराशा उन्हें आगे बढ़ने के लिए प्रेरित करती है। उनके दिल में जो देश प्रेम की आग जल रही है, उन्हें कभी थकने नहीं देगी।
सिंध प्रांत के दौरे से तिलक जी बंबई आए और बीमार पड़े। चिरोल मुकदमे से पहुंचा हुआ सदमा, सिंध का तूफानी दौरा और वहां की चिलचिलाती धूप, इन कारणों से उनके मधुमेह ग्रस्त शरीर को बिल्कुल क्षीण कर डाला था। बीमारी बढ़ती गई और अचानक वे बेहोश हो गए। बेहोशी में भी वे स्वराज, आंदोलन, इस प्रकार के शब्द बोलते। 31 जुलाई और 1 अगस्त 1920 की मध्यरात्रि को तिलक जी ने अंतिम सांस ली। उस रात बंबई में मूसलाधार वर्षा हुई, मानो आसमान भी उस महामानव के निधन पर शोक व्यक्त कर रहा था। दूसरे दिन शव यात्रा निकली और आगे चलकर जिसके कंधों पर भारतीय स्वतंत्रता का बोझ पड़ने वाला था, वही व्यक्ति तिलक जी को कंधा देने में अग्रणी था, अर्थात महात्मा गांधी। शव यात्रा चौपाटी पहुंची और अंतिम संस्कार होने ही वाले थे कि एक वृद्ध व्यक्ति फुफ्फा फाड़ कर रोते हुए वहां आया और चिता पर सर पीट पीट कर रोने लगा। वे थे लाल बाल पाल में से एक लाला लाजपत राय। उन्हें मुश्किल से दूर किया गया और तिलक जी के शव को अग्नि दी गई। वास्तविकता का चित्र में भावदर्शन बहुत बिरला दिखाई देता है, लेकिन पंडित ब्रजनारायण चकबस ने तिलक जी के मौत का जो वर्णन किया वह दिल को छू जाता है। लिखते हैं, मौत ने रात के पर्दे में किया कैसा वार, रोशनी सुबह वतन की है कि मातम का गुबार। मारिका सर्द है, सोया है वतन का सरदार, तन तना शेर का बाकी नहीं, सूनी है कछार। मौत महाराष्ट्र की थी या तेरे मरने की खबर, मौत महाराष्ट्र की थी या तेरे मरने की खबर, मुर्दनी छा गई है इंसान तो क्या पत्थर पर। बेकसी छाई है तकदीर फिरी जाती है, बेकसी छाई है तकदीर फिरी जाती है, कौम के हाथ से तलवार गिरी जाती है। लाश को तेरी सवारे न रकीबा ने कुहन, लाश को तेरी सवारे न रकीबा ने कुहन, हो जबी पर संदल की जगह खा के वतन। शोर मातम न हो, शोर मातम न हो, झनकार हो जंजीरों की, और चाहिए वतन के भीष्म को चिता तीरों की, चाहिए वतन के भीष्म को चिता तीरों की।